Imagine navigating a cross-country road trip with a GPS that only updates your location, like once a year. By the time it tells you to turn left, you are literally already sitting at the bottom of a lake.
Yeah, that wouldn't end well.
No, it wouldn't. But that is exactly what you are doing if your company still relies on the traditional, universally dreaded annual performance review. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring the death of that outdated annual review and, more importantly, we're unpacking the radical new system that's replacing it.
And to really understand the shift, we are looking closely at a fascinating recent academic paper by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover. It's titled The Future of Evaluation, Balancing AI Precision and Empathetic Leadership.
Right.
And it offers a detailed framework. It's called the Integrated Personnel Evaluation Model, or IPM, which basically attempts to solve the fundamental flaw in how modern work is measured. And it does this by merging, cold artificial intelligence with deep human empathy.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we get into the whole high-tech AI future, we kind of have to systematically look at why the current system is so, well, mathematically and psychologically broken. Dr. Westover points out that traditional reviews were built for a completely different era.
Right, exactly. I mean, they were designed for an industrial economy. If you think about, a factory assembly line or highly standardized clerical work, evaluating someone is pretty straightforward. You simply count the widgets they produced that day.
You either made 50 widgets or you didn't.
Exactly. But today, however, you and millions of others are doing dynamic, collaborative knowledge work. Your role evolves rapidly. I mean, you're likely working on cross-functional teams, you're solving abstract problems, and your actual output fluctuates based on project variables totally outside your control.
Right, like a client suddenly changing their mind.
Yes. So an episodic, once-a-year snapshot simply cannot capture the trajectory of modern work.
And if you look at the actual data behind those performance ratings, it gets even worse. There's this fascinating study from the year 2000 by Scullin and colleagues that's mentioned in the paper. They looked at what actually makes up a performance rating.
Oh, this study is a real eye-opener.
It is, because you would assume a rating is just, a reflection of your job performance. But Scullin's research found that performance ratings actually partition into three distinct things: actual job performance, measurement error, and what they call rater-specific effects.
And the finding from that study that forces organizations to really rethink everything is that the rater-specific effects often explain as much or even more of your final score than your actual performance does.
Wait, let's pause there. What exactly is a rater-specific effect? Are we just talking about, a boss playing favorites?
Well, it does include favoritism, but it's largely driven by unconscious cognitive biases. So, for example, recency bias occurs when a manager disproportionately weighs a mistake you made last week, completely forgetting the massive project you successfully delivered, say, 8 months ago.
Oh, that is so frustrating.
It is. And then there is the halo effect, where a supervisor assumes that because you are highly proficient at one specific skill, say, public speaking, you must automatically be excellent at administrative organization, even if you aren't. So the score reflects the manager's cognitive shortcuts, not your work.
So the traditional performance rating is basically a broken thermometer. It's measuring the temperature of the person holding it, rather than the actual room.
That analogy captures the mathematical flaw perfectly. But Dr. Westover argues we also have to look at the psychological flaw. He cites work by researchers Murphy and Cleveland, highlighting this impossible position we put managers in during these reviews.
Right, because they're wearing two hats.
Exactly. In a traditional sit-down, the organization asks the manager to be a judge, evaluating you to determine your salary, bonus, or promotion, while simultaneously trying to be a coach, helping you learn, admit weaknesses, and grow.
Which is crazy. If you're listening to this and thinking about your own boss, you know exactly how this plays out. If my boss is sitting across from me with a clipboard, deciding my raise, I am putting my guard up immediately.
Of course you are.
I am certainly not going to be vulnerable and say, hey, I really struggled with that client presentation. Can you help me get better at it? I'm going to act like everything is perfect.
And that defensive posture is exactly what psychologists call impression management. When evaluative and developmental goals are mashed into the exact same conversation, authentic self-reflection just shuts down.
You just try to look as competent as possible.
Right, to protect your status. And the organizational cost of this dynamic is massive. Research by Locke and Latham shows that when employees feel the evaluation process is arbitrary or unfair, intrinsic motivation crashes.
They just check out.
Yep. People start playing it safe, they game the metrics, and eventually the company loses its top talent because leadership is making promotion decisions based on deeply flawed data.
Which completely explains why companies decided to radically change course. Because human memory is a broken thermometer, organizations decided to rely on cold, hard data instead. We entered this whole era of continuous performance management.
The big data boom.
Right. Instead of one manager's subjective opinion, companies started tracking multidimensional HR metrics, things like OKRs or objectives and key results.
Yeah, the shift to multidimensional metrics was an attempt to separate what an employee controls from what they don't. Organizations realize you can't just measure an output, like raw sales numbers, because a global recession might tank those numbers regardless of the salesperson's effort.
You can't punish someone for the economy.
Exactly. You have to measure the inputs, like the employees' capabilities, and the processes, like how effectively they collaborate and share knowledge across departments.
But tracking all those inputs, processes, and outputs continuously, I mean, that is mathematically impossible for a human manager to do manually. So cue the entry of artificial intelligence and predictive machine learning.
And this is where the tools get incredibly powerful.
Yeah, Dr. Westover's paper highlights a financial institution that used AI to predict flight risk, meaning figuring out who was going to quit before they actually did it.
The mechanism behind this predictive analytics model is a great example of where evaluation is heading. This institution fed historical performance data, compensation data, learning patterns, and something called communication network centrality into a machine learning algorithm.
Okay, let's break down communication network centrality for a second. What does the algorithm actually look at there?
So it basically maps out how connected you are within the organization based on digital communication metadata.
Like who you email.
Yes. If an employee who historically emails 20 different departments and participates in a dozen active Slack channels suddenly goes quiet and only communicates with their immediate deskmate over a period of weeks, the AI flags that behavioral isolation.
Oh, wow. It notices you pulling away.
Exactly. By analyzing those subtle shifts in network centrality alongside other data points, the algorithm identified high-performing employees who are at risk of quitting 6 months before they actually handed in their resignation.
6 months. That gives the HR team a massive window to intervene, sit down with the employee, and figure out if they, need a new challenge or a compensation adjustment.
And the paper notes they saved an astronomical amount of money on recruitment and training simply by preventing that turnover.
That's incredible.
But predictive retention is just one application. The research also details a global consulting firm that used natural language processing, or NLP, to audit the actual narrative text of thousands of performance reviews written by managers.
Just reading through the actual text.
Right. The AI was deployed to search for systemic biases that human HR representatives simply couldn't see.
And the findings from this NLP audit were staggering. The AI discovered that at the exact same performance rating level, women were consistently receiving feedback focused on their communication style and team dynamics. Meanwhile, men at that exact same level were being praised for their strategic thinking and leadership potential.
And the most wild part is the human managers writing the reviews didn't even realize they were doing it.
That is wild.
Humans use semantic clustering unconsciously. A manager might write that a female employee is collaborative and a male employee is a team builder. To a human HR representative skimming 50 reviews, those descriptions look functionally identical.
They both just sound like good things.
Right. But the AI plots these words on a multidimensional map and proves they correlate to entirely different promotion tracks within the company's historical data. The machine was able to catch the invisible bias that human cognition just glosses over.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, because this raises a massive red flag for me.
Oh.
Yeah. An algorithm mapping my communication network to see if I'm isolated, or auditing my manager's notes to predict my career trajectory. Doesn't this border on a surveillance dystopia? I mean, how do we stop this from becoming a digital big brother where we are constantly looking over our shoulders?
This raises an important question, and that tension is central to Dr. Westover's research. Data is basically an amplifier. It scales whatever you feed it, including our blind spots.
So it's not inherently good.
Not at all. If you replace a biased human with an algorithm, you haven't inherently fixed the problem. Algorithms train on historical data. If a company's past data shows that they have historically only promoted men to strategic roles, the AI will look at that historical success metric, conclude that being a man is a key indicator of strategic capability, and silently penalize women in its future predictions.
Oh, geez. It literally automates the discrimination.
Exactly. It bakes it into the code.
So you can't just buy an off-the-shelf AI tool, plug it in, and let it run wild.
Far from it. Dr. Westover emphasizes the absolute necessity of algorithmic fairness and strict governance. This requires what we call demographic parity testing, meaning data scientists must constantly audit the system to ensure the algorithm isn't generating systematically different outcomes for protected groups.
That makes sense.
Governance also requires explainability. There can be no opaque black boxes. If an AI flags your performance as slipping, you and your manager must be able to see a clear, interpretable rationale behind that flag.
And there has to be a way to fight back if the machine gets it wrong, right? Like the paper mentions contestability mechanisms.
Yes, employees must have a formal channel to challenge the algorithm's conclusions. Suppose the AI flags you for missing a series of deadlines, but it lacks the real-world context that a major vendor went bankrupt, stalling the entire project.
Right, the AI doesn't watch the news.
Exactly. You have to be able to present that human context. The AI is a decision support tool. It is not an autonomous judge.
But wait, even with contestability, if I know an AI is tracking my communication network, I'm just going to artificially email 20 people a day to game the metric.
Oh, people will definitely try.
Yeah, because if employees feel surveilled by a highly efficient robot, they're going to stress out, and they will absolutely find a way to manipulate the data.
Which is exactly why the Integrated Personnel Evaluation Model, the IPEM, requires a counterweight. The technical advancements of AI are totally useless and potentially destructive without relational advancements.
This is where the empathy comes in.
Yes. Dr. Westover leans heavily on the concept of psychological safety, famously researched by Harvard professor Amy Edmondson back in 1999. Psychological safety is the shared belief within a team that it is safe to take interpersonal risks.
So you can speak up.
Right. It means you can admit a mistake, ask a seemingly basic question, or challenge a flawed process without fear of being punished or humiliated.
And without that safety, modern knowledge work just stops functioning. The paper cites researchers Dew and Cooper, who found that the cognitive flexibility and creative problem-solving required in today's economy are literally destroyed by chronic stress.
It's biological.
It is. If you are constantly worried about a bad metric automatically going into your permanent file, your brain shifts into a threat response. You physically cannot do the deep creative work your company needs.
And employee well-being is no longer viewed as a peripheral HR perk, like, putting ping pong tables in the break room. A 2024 study by Deneve and colleagues demonstrated that workplace well-being positively correlates with actual firm profitability and market valuation.
It hits the bottom line.
Exactly. Evaluation systems that drive chronic stress through opaque, punitive metrics actively undermine the financial performance they are trying to measure.
See, I hear empathy-led evaluation, and my cynical brain immediately pictures like a corporate trust fall exercise. Give me a concrete example of this actually working in the real world without compromising a company's bottom line.
Okay, the paper details a healthcare organization that completely eliminated their annual reviews and replaced them with microfeedback.
What does that look like?
Instead of managers hoarding all their critiques for a high-stakes meeting in December, they were trained to deliver real-time, behavior-focused coaching in the natural flow of work.
Just quick course corrections.
Right. By lowering the stakes and separating the developmental feedback from the salary negotiation, they significantly reduced nursing turnover, which is notoriously difficult to achieve in the healthcare sector.
Wow. There is another great example in the tech sector regarding presenteeism. The outdated idea that you have to be visible at your desk for 60 hours a week to be considered a hard worker.
A terrible metric.
Right. So this company eliminated any metrics tied to working hours or physical location. They evaluated employees purely on the actual outcomes they delivered. That massively increased retention, especially among working parents, because it gave them the autonomy to work when and how they were most effective.
It's about measuring what actually matters.
It's like the AI gives you a high-definition X-ray of the team's performance, but empathy is the doctor sitting down to explain the treatment plan. You absolutely need both. An X-ray without a doctor just gives you raw, terrifying data, and a doctor without an X-ray is forced to guess what's wrong.
I love that. And the most advanced modern systems are actually integrating the well-being indicators directly into that X-ray. Manager dashboards are now being designed to track things like excessive overtime, a lack of vacation days taken, or declining engagement scores on pulse surveys.
But wait, They don't use those stats to punish the employee for poor time management, do they?
No, right. They are flagged as early warning signs. If the AI notices an employee is consistently logging 70-hour weeks, the empathetic manager doesn't look at that and see a highly productive employee to exploit.
They see a crash coming.
They see a severe burnout risk. So the dashboard prompts the manager to intervene, redistribute the workload, or discuss boundary setting before a health crisis or a resignation occurs.
Okay, but so how does a company actually enforce this without it just being an empty promise? I mean, how do you implement this IPM framework without it turning into another ignored corporate buzzword initiative? To make the system accountable, you have to measure and evaluate the managers themselves on their empathy, right?
Yes. It requires a fundamental recalibration of the psychological contract between the organization and the employee. Historically, we have operated on an evaluative contract the company judges and the employee complies.
Very top-down.
Exactly. To make this work, organizations must move to a developmental contract focused on mutual growth. And you only achieve that shift if leaders are held mathematically accountable for being good coaches.
And the sources outline some pretty intense examples of this accountability. A professional services firm made develops others through empathetic coaching, a formal, strictly measured criterion worth 20% of a manager's overall evaluation.
That's a huge chunk of their score.
And they didn't just take the manager's word for it either. They tracked it via 360-degree feedback, meaning the direct reports were the ones grading the manager's empathy.
A multinational corporation actually took it even further by creating a manager quality index. This index tracked the engagement scores and the turnover rates of each manager's specific team. That index constituted 30% of a senior manager's own performance evaluation.
I have to laugh because the managers are basically being evaluated on how well they evaluate their team. It is incredibly meta.
It is.
But it forces them to have skin in the game. You can no longer be a tyrant who hits your quarterly sales numbers while burning out your whole team, because your own bonus will take a 30% hit when your turnover spikes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this distributed accountability is the engine that makes the model function. Implementation success isn't about purchasing the most sophisticated AI software.
It's not just a tech upgrade.
Exactly. It is about building organizational capability. You have to train managers to interpret data accurately, teach them active listening, and build a culture that fiercely protects both analytical rigor and human development.
But wait, if an AI is tracking the manager's quality index and evaluating the team's output, what stops a company from just using the AI to automatically fire the manager when the numbers drop?
Well, regulatory frameworks are already anticipating that exact danger. The paper notes that organizations, particularly a European financial institution mentioned in the research, are actively preparing for the European Union's AI Act.
Oh, right. The new regulations.
Yes. To comply, they are setting up ethics committees and mandating human overrides for all algorithmic conclusions regarding employment. You cannot let a machine execute a termination or a promotion autonomously.
So the algorithm can't just fire you via email.
No, there must always be a human in the loop. AI is an incredible tool for surfacing complex patterns that are invisible to human cognition. But preserving the space for contextual interpretation and giving the employee a voice that requires a human being.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's recap the critical takeaways from Dr. Westover's research. AI and empathy are not competing forces in the workplace. They are the dual pillars of modern work.
Absolutely.
AI provides the precision we desperately need to strip away human bias to finally fix that broken thermometer. And empathy provides the psychological safety required to actually use that data for authentic growth rather than punishment.
It really represents a profound evolution from episodic judgment to continuous data-informed partnership.
So whether you are leading a team right now or you are just mentally preparing for your own next review, ask yourself, is your organization's system measuring your true value? Or is it just a reflection of your supervisor's biases and limitations? The answer to that question will likely dictate where your career and your company is heading.
It's a critical question to ask.
It really is. And I want to leave you with one final mind-bending thought to mull over, inspired by everything we've unpacked today. If AI eventually becomes perfectly unbiased at evaluating our work outputs, and algorithmic dashboards become perfectly tuned to track our well-being and trigger empathetic responses, will the traditional role of a middle manager even need to exist in the future?
Oh, wow.
Right. Or will we all just be managed by highly empathetic AI? Makes you wonder what that X-ray machine's going to look like 10 years from now. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the future of evaluation. We loved exploring this with you, and we will catch you on the next one.